Okay, great. Welcome to 803, which is security policies and implementation issues. In this chapter, our deliverable, we are meant to look at, have a review of chapter 1, 4, and 6 of the textbook today. So, we're going to go through that right away. Chapter 1 focuses on what an information system security is. Um, we also look at why, you know, or how this information assurance plays, the type of role it plays, and okay, just a second while I share my screen. Now, why governance is important, but first of all, we need to understand what exactly is governance, right? And then we also look at what information system security policies are and how they differ from the standards and procedures. And then we also look at where policies fit within an organization structure to effectively reduce risk, why these security policies are important to business operations and how businesses changes affect these policies, and then when information system security policies are needed, and then why enforcing these and winning acceptance for security policies is challenging. So you look at information security or information system security and the policies that comes along with this, and then you tend to want to ask yourself, what is this in the first place? Look, everything in life, just like as I was making mention, right, of earlier in earlier cases, saying that we have different methodologies, we have different processes into doing things. So there is obviously rules, there is guidelines, for dealing, for how we use informations, how we protect informations, these types of things, right? So, and of course, different organizations. So, for instance, right, the policies that guides an organization, or an institution that is in the financial sector is different from the policies that will guide, a sector that is in the health, in the institution. So these types of things are the things that we look at when we talk about, because of course these two institutions actually, they make use of information, they make use of data, and then we want to be able to, of course, understand what are the policies that guides or that pertains to different institutions as well. And of course, when we look at things like this, we look at alignment, planning, organization, building, acquiring, implementation, delivering services and support. Again, these chapters are available for us, for I mean the resource itself is available for us to take time out and evaluate, or take time out and read through. Now, when we talk about the concept that I made mention online earlier, rather, you can see how they all work, or how they are all connected, with one another. So, for instance, this illustration right here actually depicts one, or a simplified example of an information system security management life cycle, right? So we've seen the system development life cycle. Now, you know, based on this unit, which is on security policies and implementation issues, we're looking at the information system security management life cycle, and we can see from alignment, planning, to organization, to building, acquiring, implementation, delivering, servicing and supporting, monitoring, evaluating, and assessing as well. Now, all these, actually form the bedrock of the management life cycle. And again, another thing that we need to understand, as you can see, a key understanding in this life cycle faces the understanding of this concept, right? This concept, I'm just going to highlight those right there: threat, vulnerabilities, and risk. I mean, now we are not new to this concept because we just looked at them, in the earlier class, right? But of course, an example or a common information security or information systems threat would be an hacker trying to break into a system, right? So that's something to note, of course, an hacker trying to break into a system. And why would that be? Because, of course, a vulnerability in that system is what would allow the hacker to gain unauthorized access. So all these are, you see how they work together, right? First of all, we looked at the threat. Now, who is the threat here? The hacker. Now, how would the hacker, or why would the hacker be able to break into a system? Because of a vulnerability, right? And now, a vulnerability could be a misconfiguration, a bug, or a flaw in the system, right? And of course, a combination of the likelihood that such misconfiguration could happen and the hacker exploiting it is known as risk. Is known as what? Is known as risk. So now we can see how these life cycle would operate, or the concept around which this would operate, just the same way we looked at the fundamentals of information security as confidentiality, integrity, and what, and availability. Now, for the security policies and implementation issues, when it comes to this management life cycle. Now you see that we are now looking at it from the management aspect. Now these are, the three important concepts that we need to pay attention to. The three important concepts we need to pay attention to, or I'll say the three pillars of, because you think about it, this is why we are putting down our policies, because of the threats, the vulnerabilities, and risk. And why we have information in the first place is because we want those information security, or we want our data to be confidential, the integrity intact, and the availability. Now, I want you to be able to differentiate this so you understand, where we are driving at, right? So you see the difference, or how these two topics or units, how they how they collaborate with each other, and how they work hand in hand together, right? And now I will just say, I'll disclose this right here. This is the code phrase word for 803, misconfiguration. So misconfiguration is your code phrase word. So for those who are in the class, please pay attention. Those who would watch online, your code phrase word is misconfiguration, right? Now, so we've seen that now, and then we already, kind of, we now have an understanding, right, of, okay, what, or why we are protecting our systems, right, from threats, from vulnerabilities, and then to reduce the risk, right. And also another thing we need to, pay attention to is, things like, when it comes to assessment, risk assessment, when we talk about risk assessment, vulnerability management, concepts like self-assessment are things we need to pay attention to. Internal audit, external auditing, regulator auditing. All these are concepts. And you can see that from here we already have certain governance and regulatory body. For instance, we are looking at the ISO IEC 38500 right here, right? So like I said, this material is available, and it's expected that we take a look at these standards, and you can see what the standards, or this corporate governance of information technology, what it stands for is responsibility, strategy, acquisition, performance, and conformance of the human behavior, right? So all these are the are the functions, the management function that is expected. So an organization could be certified, with this international organization for standardization. That's what the ISO stands for, right? And then, of course, with this certification, they are expected to, uphold these six sets of principles, for this corporate governance, which is responsibility, strategy, acquisition, performance, conformance, and human behavior as well. So now, when we look at what is information assurance as well, now you can see we are now, getting back to where we started from: confidentiality, integrity, availability. But right here we have two important concepts that were introduced, which are authentication and non-repudiation. Now, what this means are, when we talk about authentication, we are talking about, um, how do I claim to be who I say I am? Now, for instance, you can see it is simply the ability to verify the identity of a user or device. Just like I said, I say I am Ayomide Oyedele. How do I verify this? Now, I can do this maybe by my email. I am this, by your Gmail. It could be by your user ID or your password. Now, it's important to note that it's not just humans who need to verify their identities. Even computers, while they exchange their information, they need to be able to verify their identity as well. So while you are asleep, so many communications are happening behind the scenes. You want to be sure that these computers are, I mean, as a security administrator, right? You have put measures in place that these systems verify their identity, in a stringent manner and in a verified manner. Something that could will not lead to any sort of breach. That's our duty as security students or as security practitioners. Now, non-repudiation, simply put, is just an idea that says that an an individual cannot deny having digitally signed a document or being a party to a transaction. So if I send you a WhatsApp message, I always like to use this illustration because it kind of resonates best. If I send you a WhatsApp message, right, I get a single tick. Once it's delivered to you, I get the double tick. Once you read it, I get a blue tick. I can't deny sending that message. You can't deny having read that message. So that's the concept between this. And you can see this is a block that was very similar to what we did in 80, 800, where we looked at the transmission, storage, processing of data, and what actually helps us to uphold this data. Now, speaking about governance, right? We need to understand what governance is. Now, we are looking at security policies and implementation issues. Now, governance is both a concept that means, or that I would say is more or less like the body for the set of rules that we implement within our organizations, right? It's the set of rules that we implement within our organization that guides, that governs how we interact, how we process, right, and how we store data. Now, this is both a concept and a specific set of actions that an organization takes to ensure compliance. You can see these words: compliance, policies, processes, standards, and guidelines. Now, the goal is to meet the business requirement. And what is the business requirement? Confidentiality, integrity, availability. However, the focus of governance is ensuring that everyone follows what the established rules. Now, again, right, what we're doing is building upon, your time coming to study these, materials, because it's important that we actually study these materials. Now, why is governance important? Now, the first thing we need to understand is senior management has what is known as business objectives that needs to be met. Now, if the rules are being followed, right, there is a level of assurance that what the business promises will be delivered. And how are we able to ensure, for instance, how Cyber Vigil University is able to get up onto this level of delivering lectures online, with the participants in classes right now, is because we had governance that were put in place and then were being followed, were being met. And that's why up until this moment, we are able to have these classes delivered. Now, it is important that governance is in place. Why? Because the effect of governance is seen by quality assurance and quality control. Quality assurance and quality control. Now, let's not forget your code phrase word is misconfiguration, right? Was it misconfiguration? I said that earlier, right? So, and I already highlighted it in red. It's important to note that. So now the governance is guided through things, and one of them, or one of these principles that I want you to understand, right? Because we're looking at now what are information security policies, and you can see broken down into internal and external, right? So internally we have principles, policies, definitions, procedures, guidelines, and then externally we have standards, right? Now, all these are put together to ensure that the business objectives are being met, right? Um,
The fact I get to wake up and the thing that makes me happy, that fulfills me and brings me joy, I get.
so Mr. Roberto says he can't see anything. Can we all see my shared screen? Oh, okay. So why is Mr. Roberto having that issue? Please, maybe you should log out and join the link again. Now we can see the 7 domains of a typical IT infrastructure being pointed out right here for us. Now it's important to note these, right? So what are the 7 domains, or what are the 7 yeah, IT domains or the domains, right, of a typical IT infrastructure. We have the user domain, the workstation domain, the LAN domain, the LAN to WAN domain, we have the remote access domain, and then we have the WAN domain, and also the system application domain. Now, these are the seven domains of a typical IT infrastructure. Now, it's important that we note this because we are going to also get to, where we need to submit an assignment regarding that. Um, just trying to review these as soon as we can. Okay, now we have the summary. We've looked at, and there's some certain points. I think out of, based on what we've looked at so far, we've made mention of many of these terms.